Hi, and welcome to Growing Up Gaming. This show where I take games that you love and dig through the library of obscurity to find a hidden gem that's like the game you love and show you 5 reasons why it's similar in a good way, and 1 reason why it's better, in my opinion. Some have said that growing up gaming, like a cooking show, helps grow your palate and challenges your convictions. Actually, that's a lie. No one has ever said that, ever. Dragon Age is the perfect game to find a recommendation for. The original still has a legion of dedicated fans screaming for a true sequel, as the sequels they got never really lived up to their expectations. Or anyone's expectation for that matter. Let's face it, Dragon Age 2 was Mass Effect with a fantasy skin on it, and Inquisition, despite being hard to pronounce if English isn't your native language, was a dumbed down version of the first one, with a prettier skin and way too many features that seemed like they would be more at home in a mid-2000s MMO than a narrative-driven single-player experience. What I'm trying to say is, they both sucked. But you're in luck, because there are few games out there that are like the first Dragon Age. Not to say that they're better though, if you come in expecting that, you're gonna get disappointed. Dragon Age is a big sweeping epic, and it had the budget and the experienced teams to support that. But that's not to say that the game we're gonna see is bad, it's just, take Dragon Age, slim the budget, scale it down. It still has some good qualities like gameplay and story, but it's just smaller. What is this tiny Dragon Age clone you speak of? Well, you're about to find out. Roll the intro.
You are watching Growing Up Gaming.
What happens when French industry veterans team up and form a game studio and decide to develop games like the good old days of the PS2 era? Small 10 to 50 man teams, 1.5 years of development, realistic budget and realistic game design document to accompany it. Then you get developers like Spiders. Spiders specializes in making small scale RPGs that are often similar to bigger name titles but have a unique spin to them. Be it claustrophobic level design due to the fact that hey, big levels cost big money, or a world populated by very few speaking characters due to the fact that hey, more voices, more money. Or in the case of the game we're about to see, a gameplay gimmick in a choice-driven game that allows you to turn demonic through certain points in the story, because it's cheaper to physically alter a character and buff them than it is to develop separate outcomes for every crossroad in the story. But somehow, this budget-constrained fueled idea seems a lot more fun and unique than at certain points in the story, picking who dies and what characters goes with you where, like in other choice-driven games. But I'm getting off track, and in case you haven't seen the title of this video, I've strung you along far too long. The game we're looking at today is Bound by Flame.
But he knows that. He knows his men, and he knows his powder master hates just hanging around.
What is Bound by Flame? Well, it's an action RPG set in a dark fantasy world, like its big brother Dragon Age. But I'm gonna give you 5 reasons why this game is as good as Dragon Age, and 1 reason why it's better. Psh! It's a lot darker than Dragon Age. It makes Dragon Age look like My Little Pony's tea party.
Hey, enjoy your stroll? Get over here and tell me about it.
The world is in great peril. Legions of law-abiding citizens have lost their life in an eternal conflict between good and evil. Oh well, that's the story of the traditional RPG. However, this is where dark fantasy RPGs like Dragon Age excels, because this is a game that is not just black and white. Sure, there are evil guys like the Darkspawn, and there are good guys like the Grey Wardens fighting them, but not all is as it seems. What characterizes a dark fantasy is the shades of grey. Much like real-world conflicts, despite the ideological conflict at the center, there are things going on outside the battlefield. The so-called saviors of the world might actively fight the Darkspawn threat, but they might also get home from a long night of slaying and treat their elven slaves like, well, slaves. But that's just one of the reasons why Dragon Age is so good. The shades of grey. Every character, despite living in a fantasy world filled with monsters, and very little dragons despite the title, is relatable. They're people just like us. They might want to do good, but they are a product of their environment, and in the quest to do good, they might make bad choices, just like we might in our daily lives. Bound by Flame tells much the same story. It is a world on the brink of destruction, and the characters inhabiting it have grown up in a desperate world, and as a result, they have, despite their best intentions, become desperate people. When you're desperate, you might be swayed to believe anything. Like everything that is not a human is bad. And because times are desperate, and you're not looking for an answer, you might accept the opinion as true. Else are bad, and not seeking out an opinion that contradicts that. That is the case of the Red Scribes. They are a faction of mages, and they wish to defeat the Ice Lords, the necromancers that have brought about the destruction of humanity, and are now eradicating the last few bastions of it. But the Red Scribes aren't good people. They wish to do good, but their methods are flawed. Desperate in their attempt to defeat the Ice Lords, they make pacts with demons and resurrect ancient evil forces, all in a misguided attempt to save the world. You know the spiel. It's a Bioware RPG. It has a lot of memorable characters. Your followers have their own story arc, and every choice you make throughout the game affects their perception of you. And during your first playthrough, the game manages to solidly cast the illusion that their personalities change organically and not depending on a set of set story triggers that will, when triggered, dramatically change their personalities. It's a tactical RPG. It was created as an homage to the CRPGs of yesteryear. You know them. The first two Fallout games and the Baldur's Gate games are CRPGs. You know, the games that you probably bought in a Steam sale, then downloaded, then removed, then downloaded again, because this time you're totally gonna get around to playing them because they are your favorites, because they're so much better than modern games. Crazy rant aside, Dragon Age is a very tactical minded RPG. During combat you have to switch between characters and make sure they're using the right attacks on the right enemies, and in a really tough bind you have to completely pause the combat. Bound by Flame is much the same way, has none of that, yet the combat feels completely similar. I think it's because the preparation element is much the same here. After a big fight, you and your party gathers at the camp in a new zone, and from there you lead the mission into the next area. And every quest, shop and upgrade you do in that camp, like in Dragon Age. And while the combat never pauses, and while you don't have an entire party of force control, you still have a lot to control, and you have to switch between vastly different combat styles with vastly different skills to fight vastly different enemies, and it feels a lot like cycling through the characters in Dragon Age.
Son, my boy, can it be you?
One of the things that sold me on Dragon Age Origins when it first came out was that the story didn't care if I followed it or not. The story was gonna move from point A to point B, with or without me. That was very immersive, and it gave the game a sense of urgency, and as a result the game's story, which is already dark, became even bleaker and desperate. As I couldn't complete every quest and save everyone, and as a result I was way more entertained than I am by so many other RPGs. You know the deal. In every other RPG you're introduced to this huge world and it's really in danger, and everything is urgent and important. Except that you can get a ransom letter from someone in Fallout saying that you have to come immediately, then completely leave the quest, gain 40 levels and beat the game. And when you do the quest, the kidnapper will be standing there waiting for you patiently like nothing happened. Bound by Flame ups the ante. What I just talked about, it has all that. And some extra spice. Not only is there not enough time, a lot of the side quests are really hard, and I'm not talking about the combat part, I'm talking about the mind part. In my playthrough, I was simply too unprepared for what the game required of me. To use my brain for thinking and solving quests. A thing that I have not done since freeing slaves in Morrowind and convincing merchants to buy back their old store stock, which I just stole. And it was amazing and then devastating when I saw the consequences of me not doing any of the side quests. Whoopsie. Origins is just that, an origin story. It sets the Darkspawn plot in motion and introduces us to the world of Thedas. It was immediately followed up by a massive expansion titled Awakening, and a less than stellar sequel that felt more like a spin-off, and then another sequel that was even more less than stellar. Bound by Flame is much the same, except that it hasn't had any disappointing sequel to sour its good name. At the end of the game, I'm gonna try to be as vague as possible to avoid spoilers. At the end of the game, our hero confronts the big, great evil and vanquishes it, or maybe he doesn't. That choice is up to you. But we know that while the necromancers have lost much of their power and their ability to mass produce their undead armies, they are still around, and they are still very dangerous. They might not be able to replenish their armies, but they have conquered most of the known world at this point, and we have only killed 1 out of 7. But despite the choice you make at the end of the game, to either rule this world or set it straight, you are informed by an immortal character that at some point another evil came back and the peace ended. This gives us 3 options for sequels. Our hero's fate is left up in the air, making a direct sequel entirely possible. The sequel could be a spin-off. There are still 6 Ice Lords left. Another game set in another part of the world against another Ice Lord is completely possible. Or finally, the sequel could take place years into the future, long after our protagonist is dead. It's darker. I know I talked a lot about both games being dark, but if Dragon Age is a dark fantasy, Bound by Flame is a black fantasy. That came out wrong. It's a darker shade of dark fantasy. Much darker. In the world of Dragon Age, the world is in great peril and the people are scared. In Bound by Flame, people are dead. Like, the apocalypse happened and pretty much everyone in the world is dead, except for a few factions here and there making a last stand against the Ice Lords. And it doesn't stop there. In the second act I was doing pretty good, slicing and dicing, and I didn't have much of a hard time, so all the secondary objectives didn't really seem all that important, and none of the NPC characters were really bringing it to my attention.
We would alert the whole city.
I beg your pardon?
You must slay us.
I've been told there are prisoners in the city.
Thou doth make a great error.
I need your help.
So when Act 3 came around, everyone was just dead. I mean, like, everybody. Well, except for that girl. And, you know, the game actually gave me the opportunity to kill her later, so everyone could be dead. But that's the thing about Bound by Flame. In games like Dragon Age, it's somewhat clear when you have a hard choice to make. The game will indirectly tell you, or well, not so indirectly, that you have to do this thing, and if you do that thing, then the other thing will turn out bad. But in Bound by Flame, it comes off as more realistic. Each act has you preparing for a daring mission, and how you go about it and what steps you take to ensure victory is up to you. Whatever step you take will have consequences in the later act, but the game never prompts you, it never tells you that you have to use your head, and I think that's very beautiful and stylish. Bound by Flame can be a bit rough around the edges. The voice acting is nothing to write home about, and the animation is, well, lackluster at best. But the sheer novelty of this game is worth giving it a try. If you're a Dragon Age fan, or at least a little bit interested after watching this video, do yourself a favor and pick it up. And until next time, pick up a game you don't think is for you. You might like it.